you're looking to dive into topics on how to live a happier, healthier, more fit, and long lifespan, then you've come to the right podcast. Livin the Dream with me, Coach Damian Evans. Together, we will explore the topics on all things health, fitness, and wellness. Together, we will be lifelong learners on this journey to living the ultimate dream. What up, Dream Team? Coach D here, coming at you from beautiful sunny San Diego. And today we're going to be chatting with Odile Zelenak, a movement specialist here in San Diego who I personally have been friends with for years now. And she has helped me work on a lot of my own imbalances and injuries in the past. Odile is the person I refer our clients to when they're unable to work out with me, be it because injuries or other structural imbalances that their bodies may be experiencing. She's a certified mastery levels Pilates instructor, as well as an amazing orthopedic massage therapist. And today we'll be introducing you to her story and her work. It's my hope that after listening to her journey from traveling from Europe to the U.S. as a young child, she grew up with some challenging situations in her past that amplified her passion and love for really helping people understand what's going on deep within their body. She has a great story and a great way of explaining the body and cueing the movements that allows someone who has no idea about the muscle anatomy or physiology, and even helps someone like me who is so focused on the main muscles of the body to understand that there's an importance to being aware of the smaller internal muscles that build our foundation and to help us move more optimally and pain-free. Please enjoy my talk with Odile as we introduce her to the Livin the Dream team, and be prepared to hear from her again, because I love her and I love to nerd out with her on anything that has to do with the body and discussing ways to help our community move better and live better. But before we can get to this chat with Odile, I want to start by thanking the sponsors of this podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Lululemon. Lululemon has some of the best athletic wear for both females and males, and I pretty much only wear Lulu. The quality of material and durability and breathability are perfect for my active life. Another one of our sponsors is Dirt Food, delicious and healing superfood made by hand and made with love. Visit eatdirtfood.com and get the discount code DIRTYDAMIAN for 10% off everything you buy. The granola, the dirt balls, the dirt spice, whatever you buy, discount code DIRTYDAMIAN. I eat the granola every single day as a snack, and I get it auto shipped to my door on a monthly subscription. So that's eatdirtfood.com and the discount code DIRTYDAMIEN, all one word, no space, for 10% off your entire order. And this week's 5-star review comes from CHM13. CHM13 says, "My favorite thing about this podcast is the host Damian's ability to speak in a manner that sounds like he's speaking to you personally rather than an audience of many people. What's up, friend?" Really sets the tone. Thank you so much for taking the time to write that review and for your support. It means the world to me. If the rest of y'all could do me a favor, if you haven't already, while listening to this episode, if you haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to subscribe, and you can get notifications anytime I release a podcast and a mini episode on Friday and a masterclass on Sunday. And scroll down and leave me a 5-star review if you feel that I've earned it. I read every single one, and I appreciate and love the feedback. And without any further ado, let's jump into my chat with movement specialist Odile Zelenak. All right, Dream Team. For today, I really am super excited to kind of welcome you to someone that's been my good friend for years, an amazing, amazing fitness professional, one of the smartest that I've ever met. Her bio, she, in the year 2000, got her Pilates certification. 4 years later, she became a certified Vinyasa yoga instructor. In 2005, she had her mastery level Pilates trainer certification done. 2006, she worked on her gyrotonic trainer certification. And in 2010, she became an orthopedic massage therapist. She literally knows everything there is to know about the human body. Every time I ask her any kind of fitness related question or body related question, it opens up a rabbit hole of nerdiness when it comes to us being fitness professionals. So I am so excited to welcome to the show Odile Zelenak. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and so honored to be interviewed by you, who I also consider an extraordinary fitness professional.
Oh, beautiful. So my main focus for today's episode is to expose the Dream Team listener to your specific philosophy when it comes to movement and really focusing on the internal. For me, I'm someone that is very external focused. I can see the muscles on my body. I like to work those main muscles. And really, when I met you, I found out that there's just a whole new world deep down in the body that I've been neglecting. So before we get into any of those kind of questions, I know that we're going to be doing multiple podcasts together. I hope that we can this will be a part one of many.
I'm excited about that.
But for today, I want to get a quick intro into what you're all about. And I really want to start off with what was your journey growing up in Transylvania and making your way to San Diego and becoming the fitness professional you are today? Can you give us a little bit of an overview on your journey?
Sure. So I was born in Transylvania, which for some of you know, but many people don't know. They just think it's where Dracula came from, which that's debatable. But so I was born in Transylvania, which is a particular region of Romania. It's a hotbed for a lot of ripe inner work. A lot of fitness professionals have come from that space, and I don't know if it's because of the communist regime, but anyway, there's a wealth of incredible minds from that area, particularly kind of that Eastern Bloc. So my father was a physical therapist there, and then we moved to Israel, where he was a physical therapist for Moshe Feldenkrais. So I don't know if some of your listeners know who Feldenkrais is. And it's a neuromuscular repatterning type movement, and a lot of people use it as a healing modality. So my father worked in Tel Aviv in his physical therapy clinic, and then we moved to the United States. So when I came to the United States, I was 5 and a half, almost 6 years old. So my father continued to be a physical therapist when he came to the United States, and I absolutely was fascinated by this idea that people could get better just through movement. Like as a little kid, I loved doing cartwheels and backflips and going to gymnastics and jumping on the trampoline and splits and all that stuff. And so to think that people were getting better by doing it, I remembered already being at such a young age thinking this is fascinating. He is a specialist, or he was when he was practicing in geriatric physical therapy. So we actually had a kind of a live-in convalescent home type situation at our home. So we had patients at our house, where one wing of the house, we lived in this huge ranch-style home in Kenwood, which is up in Northern California, and one wing of the house was dedicated to our live-in patients, and the other wing was for my sister and I. And so I would watch these patients every day in our backyard, doing their exercises, and just continued to be amazed. So moving on, he quit having patients at our house, and he opened up his own physical therapy office, and that's where I would help him after school every day, wheeling in the little ultrasound machine and kind of rubbing on. And I'm 8 or 9 or 10 at this point, so I'm not particularly old, but incredibly fascinated by it. And so I think that was really the origin for me of my love for the body and what it could do, not even realizing that's what I was fascinated by, other than just, this is just amazing. But I never thought of it as, this is the field I'm going to go in, or...
What great exposure at that age. It's like, what were we doing back in the day? When I can only think what I was doing when I was 8 or 9. I was outside playing basketball, but I never actually got exposure to what my parents were doing, which is probably a good thing. I probably wouldn't have gone into the field that I went into, but I mean, that's so cool to be exposed at that young of an age, to be exposed at that high of a level of something that's with the human body.
Right.
That's awesome.
So I think that was an enormous influence, and so kind of the flip side of my story, kind of the darker side, but I think also is a huge piece of the fabric, as my father was and is now recovered, but a raging alcoholic. And I think that growing up in an alcoholic household made me really aware, and gave me kind of a heightened sense of intuitive skills, empathic skills, not necessarily ones that I think are great for us to live by. But if I'm going to make lemonade out of lemons, I would say I really learned about the sensitivity of the human condition and how to take care of myself to the best of my ability in an environment where people are going through their own experience and has nothing to do with me, but they're going to unload their stuff on me if I'm the one in the room. And, I think the compassion piece, I've definitely, obviously, even to be able to have this conversation, I've done a lot of work on myself. But I definitely think that truly, like, being able to turn something and be able to have the awareness around something that could potentially have been, kind of, not killer, but like would not make me want to be inspired. It actually flipped me the other way, and I became more inspired. And I think that's the part where I want to help people on an emotional level. And I don't see the body as just a physical or emotional or spiritual. I think it's all of it. And I think that there's a piece of that kind of lives in there. So growing up and having that sensitivity, I think.
And what's really interesting about that is I listen to a lot of successful people. I mean, I feel like if I want to be somewhere, I try to look at the people that are there,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to listen to how did they get there? What
Right.
were the strategies? What were the little things? And every single time, there's something that you would consider a super negative thing that happened in these people's lives. Something that's like rock bottom, something that it would break most people. And that's what they rebounded from in order to get to the mountaintop that they're on. So it's incredible to see the growth that happens from stresses like that in your life, and how that makes you the successful person you are. Because if you wouldn't have had that type of empathetic feelings and towards other people, you could possibly have been going through your entire fitness career just like not understanding what these people are going through. And I know some personal trainers that are like that. They're brand new, and they're like the drill sergeant-y people that are like go go go. And most people don't love fitness like fitness professionals love fitness. So
Right.
It's like you have to understand the why they are here, and you got to meet them halfway, and what's good for them when it comes to movement and physical activity, and they know where they want to be with their fitness goals. So how do you connect those two? Without that kind of experience growing up, I don't see how you could be as successful as you are today. So how did you get from moving to San Diego or moving to the States to where you are right now?
So in college, I took a yoga class thinking that it was yoga, but actually it was a Pilates class, and not realizing it. I absolutely loved the class. And then, continued life happens. And I found myself in 2000, I just had my son, and I took a Pilates class and absolutely loved it, and didn't realize that it was the same thing that I had taken in college. So I kind of stumbled into this class, and more than anything, what that Pilates class taught me, or reminded me, not even taught me, but reminded me of the way my dad would teach the exercises to his patients. So it was a lot about fundamentals. I mean, it didn't matter whether he had a 20-year-old who came to him for a car accident or an 80-year-old who he was working with, but there were these fundamentals that they had to go through in order to be able to execute the exercises properly and to really heal. And so I could almost hear some of those kinds of thoughts and ideas coming through as I was doing these exercises on the mat, not knowing what I was doing, but I noticed that it came really naturally to me. And so, it's not a wow story at all, because I really kind of stumbled upon it, but I was a person who, had gone to school. I loved to move. I was more of a runner and that type of an athlete. I wasn't a dancer. I didn't have any sort of major dance background. There was nothing about me that decided like, oh, I'm definitely destined to go down this path. And it purely was love of doing it that brought me to it. A lot of times people will, ask like, were you a dancer? How do you know your body? How do you know, like, were you an athlete? Did you compete? Were you a high level? Like, nope. It wasn't any of those things. Really what guided me was my love for it. So, when I have new trainers that come to me and say like, how do I get to where you are? One of the things that I think I tell them, and I know we're digressing a little bit, is do what you love. Like a lot of people discount, well, I wasn't a dancer, or I wasn't an athlete, or, I don't, whatever it is. Some women actually, and it's been mainly women, that have wanted to start their Pilates careers in their 50s to become trainers. Go for it. Like, if you love it, do it. As a matter of fact, most people are going to relate to you at that age than maybe some young 20-year-old who's trying to teach a client who's 60 years old. Like, do it. I just really encourage people, like, if you have the love for it, absolutely do it. Gain the knowledge, but definitely do it. So I think that what led me to the next, after taking that Pilates class in 2000, was purely the interest. I took the certification, absolutely loved it, then kind of ended up being, again, I was just so fortunate, being in one of the most amazing Pilates places, which is up in Northern California, and my teacher was a woman named Madeline Black. And she was an enormous, and continues to be an enormous influence in my Pilates training. My certification was with one of her trainers from a couple years before. So I just fell into this miraculous space. And Madeline Black is considered one of the new elders in the Pilates field. So she has really moved Pilates forward and has actually taken it into a much more specific direction rather than just general movement. It's really looking at the mechanics of the movement, really looking at the nuances of the movement, but also looking at the global movement. So for those of you who don't totally know what I'm talking about, it takes so much kind of information for the body to do a movement properly, and it can feel so overwhelming. But when you have somebody be able to break it down for you so simply, and just you get a chance to just put attention on that one thing, and then you layer on another thing, like that's kind of what Madeline does. That's how she teaches, and it's hugely inspired me as well. And then I also studied with Tom Hendrickson, who was my orthopedic massage teacher and mentor, and he has an incredible staff of orthopedic massage therapists. And then I also did a cadaver dissection, which truly took me, into the body. And that knowledge and love, I mean, it just keeps coming back to that. But that knowledge and that love is the place where I want to help clients get there. Like, I really want people to be able to go inward. So yes, it's me cueing a person, but it's also as much that person hearing the cue, and it's almost not even their head, it's their body that hears the cue, and the body craves this connection. Like, just like we crave connection from others, the body craves connection with itself. It wants to know itself. It wants to know its organs. It wants to know how to release. It wants to feel that sense of truly of connection. And when we're disconnected from our bodies, I can't think of like a worse thing or a worse feeling, like for me personally,
Okay, so you're one of the smartest movement specialists that I know, and personally that I know. And when I coach people, I can't help but look at their posture, look at their movement, and I make assumptions about them before I even know them or talk to them. And it's not in a bad way. It's just, I bet that when they do this, they get aches and pains here. Or this is probably something they're very strong at, and this is something that they're probably not as strong at. Do you find yourself breaking down the movement of others? And if it was socially acceptable to go up to people and tell them about their inefficiencies and their deviations, what are some main focus points that you tell people to do in order to have them move optimally? What are some things that most people in society do that are just like, I wish I could just go over there and lift their shoulders back? Is there anything that you do do you look at people like that?
I do. So one of my favorite places to hang out, and not lately because of COVID, but is the airport, because it's a fantastic people watching, and people are kind of at their worst in terms of posture when they're traveling because of the suitcases and the backpacks and the children in tow and the strollers and
the stress.
Very much so. So yes, if it were socially acceptable, I would completely go up to people and say, and this is the part that's very different, because people would say, pull your shoulders, right? Everybody thinks that you're supposed to pull. No, you're not supposed to pull your shoulders back. The idea is that you want to spread your shoulders wide, right? Pulling it back is just as stressful as pulling it forward, but we don't think that, because for years our parents always said, stand up straight, pull your shoulders back. But that actually puts a lot of strain on the neck. So yes, there are things for sure. I mean, watching people on their phones drives me crazy. Sometimes working out, the way people work out, and I watch them when they're hitting those last 2 or 3 reps, and they're just their form is gone and they're so tired and they really want to just finish those last few, and I'm like, oh gosh, if you could just see yourself for a second, you would not continue to do that because you're going to be so sore tomorrow, not in the right way. But yeah, I'd say things that we could all, and this includes myself, could pay attention to is my feet, like making sure both my feet are hitting the ground properly when I'm standing. When I'm sitting, ideally I'm sitting at the front edge of a chair so that my sits bones can sit on a firm surface. Again, I kind of address the shoulders. The shoulders are broad, not hunched backwards or forwards. And the head, ideally the ears are stacked right up on top of the shoulders. So that's, again, I don't always assume that perfect posture, but the feet are completely overlooked and under talked about. And yes, to the abdominals and the core muscles, but I'd say those are probably the good starters.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you said something about the feet because I just actually did my longest episode, I haven't released yet, that is all about foot health. Mm-hmm. And I literally have just gotten into this in the last couple of years. Everything stems from the ground up.
That's right.
If you are deviated with your ankles or with your knees or anything, it's going to travel up the chain and you're going to feel some things. So when I'm looking at people, I literally look from the ground up and I can see, their ankle is inverted, it's rolled inside and their knees collapsing just a little bit. Or like when I see joggers, when they're jogging and they're running, they're struggling, I can see like some knees collapsing or the shoulders rounding. I can see this stuff and I'm like, oh man, it's so important to have this self-awareness of where your body is in space and what it's doing in order to be able to move optimally. And then members will ask me like, why do I get these pains here and there? And I'm like, it's because we haven't built the foundation. So being able to meet with someone like you, being able to see what is actually the right way to be and then actually feel yourself in that. I mean, I'm very guilty of saying, hey, pull your shoulders back. But then when you told me to create space, not only create space left to right, but create space up to down. So it's almost like you're trying to just make your shoulders wider, make your crown of your head higher. That's not you squeezing and using muscles. It's you trying to be able to put yourself in the right position. And space is a really good cue that you use that just like I always think about. It's not like shoulders pinned back because then you're squeezing your back muscles together and that's going to overactivate those where something else is going to be, pulled on in another way. It's just going to put stress somewhere else.
Totally.
So, I mean, people are very, very vulnerable when they are in pain. And when they come to me and they ask me about my pain, I'm obviously not a doctor. I obviously don't have an MRI or an X-ray machine. I've seen thousands of people that come up to me and talk. Literally thousands of people. They come up to me with little aches and pains and when it comes to the group fitness space. So I usually have a pretty good answer as to what it could be. But they're vulnerable and they'll listen to what I say and they'll do it even if I'm not correct, So I struggle with that because I'm still learning just like everyone else. Have you experienced fitness professionals that go too far when they make recommendations for injuries or pain? And have you seen them take advantage of that vulnerability that people have? And what are your strategies to reassure that person that they're in good hands when they come to you?
Yes, I have been really fortunate to really work with educated trainers, and whether it's been Pilates trainers, yoga trainers, I cannot kind of express how incredibly blessed I've been. So I haven't actually been around a trainer who has given, improper advice or whatever, who hasn't checked themselves right after. I think we as trainers are going to make mistakes, and I think as long as we own our mistake and also have our own vulnerability to say, I don't know that I have the right answer for that. Let me look into that for you, or I'm not the right person. I think the sign of a really great trainer is somebody, and this is across the board, somebody who can refer out when they are way past their skill set, instead of saying, oh, I know this one. Oh, I've experienced. No, just be honest and say, I would really love to help you, but I don't think I'm the right person. But I know Damien, who's going to be a great fit for this, fitness question for you, because he knows exactly about the heart rate and this, that, or the other. And So I think being able to refer out actually is a sign of such intelligence to me, and a person who really has their client's best interest in mind.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, if you talk to someone and they do one of these two things, you got to run away. This is something that you want to avoid, and it's just what you said. If you ask them a question and they can't say, I don't know, that's number one. And number two is if they use absolutes, like always or never, or, this works for everybody. Like, if they don't start their answer with it depends, or it's individualized on the person, I can almost guarantee you that they're full of crap. Like, you got to stay away from that. So the first answer should be, it depends. What is this in relation to? If I have a pain here and it was created by this movement, like, it could be any of these things, but it also could be none of those things. Right. And if you get a fitness professional that comes to you like that and it says, I want to do some trial and error and exploration, and it's going to take time and, some invested like internalization of you trying to connect to your body. Like, if that's not the answer to your fitness professional or to your person that you go to for pain, you have to go somewhere else. So sometimes when you do soft tissue work on me, you talk about muscles holding on to memories. So can you talk about what your theory is as to why the muscles might be holding on to memories, and is there anything that you would want people to know about when you're massaging people and trying to figure out what could be going on with their situation?
So my understanding around the body's ability to release muscle tissue and or resist muscle tissue has to do with survival. So it goes way back to our days of cave people and Neanderthals, and our ability to really run and fight or flee, right? And if we're feeling that our body is under any sort of stress, the body is going to hold on. It will remember what that feeling is. It will remember that circumstance, and it will do everything it can to not experience that again. And so it's really it's an adaptive quality that our body has learned in order to prevent further injury down the road. The problem is that we then want to continue living our lives, but we're storing and holding all these memories of an injury, whether it was a whiplash, whether it was actually even a near car accident, because the body doesn't even know once that corticosteroid hits. Let's say somebody is about to hit your car, but they slam their brakes on beforehand, you still get the same release of the cortisol in your body, whether you physically got the injury or not. So the body still has the stress hormone that's kind of running through it. So that's a little bit of the biochemistry of it. And of course, there's lots and lots of information. Peter Levine, way back in the day, did Waking the Tiger, where he talks about the body's nervous system and its ability to hold on to pain and strain and trauma, and then its ability to release it. And then it kind of got re-heightened again with The Body Keeps Score, which that book is now really popular also. But kind of getting back to when I'm working with somebody, I can feel when they have resistance. And within the orthopedic massage technique, there are ways to help people soften their resistance. And what happens is the body starts to recognize that there's no trauma here, there's no stress here, there's no need to hold on to the pain or the memory. And then at that point, I can do what I can through the soft tissue work for the body to start to release. But I always recommend with clients that if they are having flashbacks, because that happens too, that people seek out, like a therapist or an intuitive or whatever kind of modality that they feel is safe and comfortable for them to work through the trauma. Because until we psychologically can release the trauma, our muscles will keep holding on to that.
So even if it's the only way I can kind of understand that is kind of putting myself in the situation that you just talked about. And I was rear-ended in a car about a year ago, and I was on my phone in the passenger seat. The driver didn't get hurt. The people behind me that hit me didn't get hurt. I was down on my phone looking at my phone, and I was the worst. I don't know if I hit my face on the phone or on the dash, but I got my face bloodied. And every time I like bonk my head, or like even if it's like on something soft, my muscles will spaz like it did the time that I got hit and rear-ended. So that muscle, the brain is like a protective mechanism. It's saying like, hey, there could be something any moment that's going to smash you. And, you know, is that something that you can work through with a psychologist, do you think? Or is that like something that you have to be like, I'm safe, that's not going to happen here? Like, is that something that you have to do inside in your own brain?
I think it's both. And again, this is all my theory, right? So there is a slew of information, and this is one of those where I would tell a client, I'm going to refer you to somebody, because I don't know that I necessarily have the ultimate answer, but I certainly have an answer that feels like it's a good fit for me and the clients that I've offered them, which is, if the trauma isn't going away, I do think it's worth working through with a therapist, even if it's a physical trauma, because the body's ability to trigger so quickly and hold on so tightly actually might have something to do with what happened when you were younger, right? So that's where even a fall at 3 or 4 years old, or, you know, this, that, the other, sometimes going back in time makes a difference. Sometimes it doesn't make a difference. But what one can do is kind of go back in time and release that moment in time from the stress any longer, right? So in Waking the Tiger, one of the things that Peter Levine talks about is going back and offering a different ending. So at some point you literally tell your body a different ending to the story, even though the physical ending happened the way it happened to you. When your body is in that moment of trauma, you offer it a different ending. So if you bump your head on your pillow, for example, or, you know, whatever happens, right? But you can tell your body that, oh, there was a different ending. I walked away from the car accident, and I didn't get hurt at all, and I was amazed that my neck could turn in all directions. Your body could believe that. So there's always that. But again, there are pain specialists who deal with this, and I would refer you to somebody who's a specific pain specialist, especially if it's inhibiting your ability to live your life comfortably.
So powerful. Like, think about that. That's the words that you use and the thoughts that you think could change your entire biology and the way that your muscles and brain works. That's like so cool to think about.
Yeah.
So I know that you're very passionate about the deep muscles of the pelvis and the spine, and I couldn't do our first talk and interview without talking about the deep muscles of the spine and the pelvis. Can you speak a little bit to that passion, and why are we not all aware of what's going on deep inside of us? Why is it just me thinking about my biceps and my abs and my glutes?
Well, if my biceps looked like yours, I think I'd think about my biceps all the time too. There's like a light version answer, and then there's a little more intense version answer. The light version answer of your question is that I am really passionate about connecting to the center, and I have been. And I think, again, this goes back to growing up in an alcoholic family, and that has to do with my experience was that when I would name something that was happening, the outside world would say, oh, that didn't happen, because that's kind of the environment that happens. I think what I've been told growing up in an alcoholic family is the child's experience isn't validated. So the parent says, no, that didn't happen, or I didn't mean to do that, or there's no accountability. There's no kind of coming back into the center of, oh, wow, I could really see that was difficult for you, or I can see I hurt your feelings. So anyway, long story short, getting to the center of things and really having reality be at the center of the experience is really important to me. Like that, coming from the essence of something and having that essence be felt and seen, I think is where the root of my passion comes from. And in addition to that, and this is kind of the not fun part, but again, another part to the story is I was molested and I was date raped. And the power that I think was taken when I was young, I it never occurred to me that I gave away my power or that my power was taken. I just knew that there was a whole part of my body I didn't want to have any awareness around. And if I did, talk about trauma, right? If I did put attention on it, how was I ever going to reclaim that? There was a lot of shame there. I had a lot of self-blame. So part of, and not even realizing I was doing this, but every time I practiced the Pilates practice the way I would, now I cue it, it was this constant reclaiming of like, this is my space, this is my body, this is my powerful center. And that just was empowering. It just felt so uplifting and rejuvenating and revitalizing, and kind of like a big FU to whoever does anything violating to another person. So I think that the core piece and why it is so passionate for me is I believe that we teach what we're powerful about or most passionate about. And I think that that's at the core. So much of it is I see so many clients, so maybe they didn't have a sexual trauma or something like that, but they just don't feel very connected, right? And so what better place to start than really at the center of our being, and to start to feel connected from there and then work our way out to the surface.
Yeah. And that goes back to our statement of someone that had something really terrible happen to them and using it for good and propelling them towards goals that actually help other people. Like, there's nothing more pure than that. And right. I thank you for sharing that, by the way. That's amazing. Think about what other path you could have taken. Some people that go down that road, they take their advice and they use it on substances or whatever like that. You took it and you said, okay, well, now I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to take, what's the word? Not pride, but this is my body,
right. Yeah, ownership.
You're going to take ownership of that. And I'm going to show other people how to do that. And a side benefit of that is that think about how all I know is about the U.S. right now, but right now in the U.S., when I was growing up, like the reproductive system and how you use those organs and all, that's kind of like taboo, right? Like you don't talk about you going to the bathroom or I get all the time ladies in my classes that as soon as we start doing jumping jacks are like, can I go to the bathroom? And I'm like, yeah. And it's obviously embarrassing to that person, right? But like, if they could take ownership of what's going on and they can strengthen those muscles and understand, like connect to those internal muscles, like that's so empowering. Yeah. And that's what I get from it. Whenever I learn from you with these internal muscles, it's like, this is me being able to take control of something inside my own body.
It's so important to, first of all, be aware of what we don't know. Kind of like when we were talking about referral, like if I can honestly say, I don't know how to do this exercise, can you teach me? We're going to do so much better at performing that exercise once we've learned. So I think instead of, maybe looking at the places where we have shame. So if somebody, wants to do jumping jacks but can't because they're worried about, leakage or whatever, I think that's like, okay, pay attention to that. Notice like, shoot, I know that there are muscles down there. I don't know how to control those muscles. I don't even know that there is such a thing as controlling those muscles. This kind of leads us to the conversation around kind of what are the core muscles and how do those muscles get engaged. But I would say for sure, being aware of the what isn't working and then educating ourselves on that, I think is a good place to start.
So if someone had that kind of those kind of issues where they want to start working on their internal muscles, would you say that they worked with someone like you one-on-one? Would they go to Pilates classes? What sources should they search out in order to get a little more educated and work on those a little bit more?
So a general Pilates class typically doesn't talk about the pelvic floor muscles the way I do. So they focus more on the general exercises and want clients' bodies to fit into these exercises. And I'm the exact opposite. A client comes to me and we work with the client and I ask them to do some exercises, but then I adapt the exercises to the client. So if we're doing an exercise and the client says, I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to keep saying that same exercise over and over and just drilling away at them that, well, you need to do it better, faster, harder. Like, that's not going to work. So it's How can we adapt this exercise so that it fits you rather than you fitting it, right? So, but before all that, knowing what your core is and knowing where it is fundamental, because really you want to engage from the interior muscles to the surface muscles. And the core muscles live in the pelvic floor. And can we say vagina on?
I think so.
Okay, all right. Well, we're going to say vagina and scrotum because those are really important areas of the body. And if we don't know how to contract the muscles around those areas, then we're missing an enormous part of the core musculature, and that which keeps our body in balance, connection, the ability to slide, stretch, glide, move, fast, slow. Those muscles are so fundamental. So ideally, you're engaging at the root of the pelvic floor in the front. So for women, it's cueing the vaginal canal closed. For men, it's engaging around the scrotum. And then that closure needs to go somewhere. So it goes up. Gravity is trying to push all of our organs down, which creates a lot of pressure and a lot of leakage. So we want to narrow the pelvic floor completely shut. I call it the pelvic elevator. You close the elevator and you lift that elevator up. And when you lift the elevator, you're turning on the deep abdominal, the transverse abdominis, which acts like a corset or a belt, which then turns on your multifidi. So it's almost like a light switch, like you hit the light switch and like 6 different light bulbs go on, not just one. And you want all of them to go on. You don't want just one muscle group to go on. And so once you've got those muscles engaged, then you can move your whole frame in any direction you want. The muscles are set up in the most, hopefully, beneficial position so that as you bend and stretch and move, all the bones are gliding and sliding and the tissue is rolling on top of each other rather than things clunking and cracking and slipping out of position. Those are feelings and words you don't want to feel or hear when you're exercising, right?
So what you're talking about is you're literally talking about creating a foundation from the inside to be able to move the way that we normally move when it comes to physical activity or actually even just daily movements. And this is something that nobody does. I mean, maybe you do it, and
right.
I try to do it once I leave your session,
right.
But like a day later, sometimes I fall back into my old habits. So it's about having awareness of where can I set myself up. And for those of you that don't know, multifidi is spine muscles, small muscles of the spine. So think about like, we have our biceps, our abs, our chest muscles, but we also have tiny little muscles that control these little spine articulations. And we have these muscles that hold our pelvic floor where all of our organs are sitting on, and slowly just like gravity is dropping. Gravity is not very nice on a part of our body, parts of our body. So being able to strengthen that, to be able to hold it, being able to create that solid foundation, and then I can do my push-ups or my lunges or my leg raises or something like that. Super important. If I were to go onto YouTube right now, if I couldn't get into a session with you or anything like that, what type of things would I search? What style of training is that called? Is that something that's only particular to you, or is that something that people can like dive into a little more in depth on their own?
That's a good question. So you can always look on my YouTube channel I think it's Odile Movement and Bodywork, and then I have a bunch of different videos.
I'll have you send me the link, and we'll put it in the description notes.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
But no, there are other movement trainers, and most of them are now kind of shying away from just Pilates trainers, and they're calling themselves movement specialists, because it is a little bit more about the movement first rather than the Pilates first, if that makes sense. So we use Pilates as a vehicle to exercise these concepts, but movement specialists is kind of the key word that you're looking for.
I love it. So, I mean, obviously, movement specialist, if you go search that on YouTube, you can kind of dive down the rabbit hole. But before we get to the last question, I want to respect your time, obviously.
Thank you.
Where can our listeners find you and get into contact with you and learn more about your work and or actually just work with you?
So I am in Sorrento Valley here in San Diego. So my website is odilemovement.com, and you can see my bio there. I think I have a bunch of YouTube videos uploaded on that site. You can see some bios and some descriptions about the way I teach. And then on Facebook, you can find me at Odile Movement Bodywork. And on Instagram, it's Odile Movement Bodywork. So it's all one word.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'll include all those links in the description of this episode. So this podcast is called Livin the Dream. And my last question to you is, what does it mean to you to live your dream? And what can you offer our listeners as far as tangible action items to help them live their own dream life?
You have such good questions.
Putting you on the spot because you're my first guest. So.
You are. I love it. Okay. What does it mean to me to live my dream? And I actually have thought a lot about this. For me, living my dream has its roots in being able to do and express myself fully. So, like if I want to run a marathon, I would have the ability to do that. If I want to go see my son, I would have the ability to do that. If I want to spend an evening sitting on the couch, I have the ability to do that. So it's this idea that I am so in touch with what it is that I'm wanting and very clear about what my needs and thoughts are and wishes are, and having the physical capability to be able to do that, whether it's through my body and doing physical movement, whether it's through my words and being able to express myself as fully and accurately as I can. I think it's not anything out there. For me, I think living my dream is probably being really intimately connected with myself.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then tangible action items that
Okay.
you might offer our listeners to be able to live that kind of life. Is there anything that, just a nugget of wisdom that you might be able to share? It doesn't have to be anything deep. It could be super deep.
Okay. Yes, start to get to know your pelvic floor. I know that sounds, we just talked about it, and it feels really opportunistic because we just talked about it. But I would say that one of the biggest takeaways that my clients are always floored by is, oh my God, I had no idea that was in there. I had no sense or even like the tiniest little glimmer of awareness that changes my posture, changes the way I feel about myself, gives me a whole new area to feel strong about. So start practicing your pelvic floor exercises.
Beautiful. Powerful. I love it. Well, Odile, I have to thank you just for the friend that you are for me and the beautiful person that you are. And just if we take all the skills that you have in the fitness realm, you're still one of the kindest people that I know. And you always brighten my day when I'm around you. Mm-hmm. So, I just have to thank you for being you.
Thank you, Damien. I am so grateful and so inspired by you all the time. Awesome.
That's a great way to end it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Dream Team, that was movement specialist, orthopedics massage therapist, and Pilates master instructor Odile Zelenak. What an incredible talk with Odile. She's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the human body and movement. I hope that you got something valuable from hearing about her story. We all have challenges in life, and it's what we decide to do with those challenges that determine what kind of impact we make on our own communities and to this world. We can let our lowest moments take us down a spiraling negative path, or we can use those moments to fuel us, to share our lessons learned and our passions, and to help others live the dream lives that we all deserve. I really think we could all do a better job at realizing that there's more within us than just the superficial. I think that we could all do a better job at taking time to build a better foundation for ourselves. So if you have any nagging aches or pains that you can't figure out or that have been impacting your life negatively, please take a look at all the ways that you can get access to Odile's work. They'll be in the episode description notes. Now, her and I have done a few social media posts, some YouTube videos together, and she also has her own website as well as her own videos and social media that you can check out. She is full of knowledge and wisdom and has a passion for helping others discover what's going on deep inside of their body. And even if you just want to go get a Pilates class done in San Diego and you're in the area, go ahead and check her out. So if you're in the San Diego area and you're experiencing any types of movement imbalances, pains, frustrating, nagging injuries, anything of that nature, please set up an appointment with Odile, and together you can work on figuring out and fixing your body to get you guys moving and living happy and pain-free. If you have any other questions regarding what we talked about today, or you'd like us to dive a little bit deeper into a certain topic, please message me on any of the social media platforms or leave a comment on this episode, and we'll be sure to cover it in a future interview. You can find me on Instagram at CoachDamian_SD or on Facebook or YouTube, and the links found in the description notes of any of our episodes. Thank you so much for your time and your support. Out of all the things in the world that you could be doing right now, you took the time to be here with the Livin the Dream team. And I don't take that for granted at all. I'm so grateful for you being here and listening. Thank you again to Odile Zelenak. And until next time, friends, keep living the dream.